Bank tellers of Reddit, what is your plan if someone sends bees through the tube? Home Depot used to have a tube system. One day the garden center caught a yellow jacket in the tube. Everyone was freaking out and sending the tube back and forth until a brave soul, head cashier, managed to cram a bag with a roll of dimes into the tube while the yellow jacket was stunned on the bottom. It was just enough to remove the threat and save the day. If they weren't in a pod, it'd be pretty impressive if they got from one entrance to another in a vacuum tube system without being smooshed by a tube. I'd probably be more impressed than annoyed. If they were in a pod, the whole buzzing and seeing things move around in the pod would be a signal not to open it. Not worked in a bank, but did work in a supermarket with a vacuum tube system from the tills to the accounting room. Pushes back bees out the tube. Wrong currency, mate. Not a bank teller. Was a bank teller. This is accurate. Every branch I worked for had a pretty easy return system. Some didn't even open until we slid the door open. Those would be really easy to avoid bees on. Open a business account. I'm not a bank teller, but I would grab the lollipops we have out to give away to kids and use them to win the bees over. I would tell them there are plenty more lollipops if they come back and bring friends. I would then hide my new army of bees in an ATM and wait for you to return. OP. I bet if you changed one of the menu options on an ATM to bees, it'd be less than half an hour before someone pressed it out of curiosity. I was a teller forever ago, but I just wouldn't have opened the goddamn canister. Which begs another question. What's the oddest thing ever sent in the canister? We got a Sonic chili dog delivered this way once. Not exactly what you're asking, but I had a coworker who was depositing some checks and when the receipt came back there was $1,000 cash instead. It was meant for a different customer. When he told the teller what happened, she yelled, "Sir, you need to put money back in the tube immediately." He complied, but forgot about the carrier. He said it was raining cash and all the tellers were running around grabbing cash like on a game show. Not all beekeepers do this, but I actually remove feral bees from people's houses and rehive them in my apiary. I have a lot of bees. If I didn't respect them as much as I do, I could totally spare a few dozen workers to send up a bank teller tube. The queen could replace them in a few hours. So yeah, this scenario is actually technically plausible. Not sure why I do it, though. You're like my neighbor. We had I think 30,000 bees take over a tree in the yard and he came and got the queen. Came back a couple days later because there were so many workers they just kinda re-nested where the queen was. It was as if the swarm never left. Seeing a swarm of 30,000 bees hovering over a tree and slowly settling was definitely something. I thought there were people racing drones or something when I opened the door, it was so loud. You're a cool dude. I'm grateful for people like you and my neighbor because if it weren't for you they'd probably all just get poisoned. I was really concerned about the fate of those bees until I learned we had a beekeeper around. My mom's shed had a colony of bees living under the floorboards, and she found a beekeeper who was happy to come take and rehome them for free. It was quite a sight. He even let me don his spare bee suit and play with the bees whilst they were high on smoke. The whole experience actually helped me get over my own melissophobia, plus we got to keep some honey. Tea was delicious. Alright son, you asked for it. Here's how you rob a bank with bees. First off, bumblebees ain't gonna cut it here. Honey loving bumblebees don't rob banks. They stay home and make honey. Now we can opt for the adorable Africanized killer bee, but my recommendation is to go with the wasps, if you have the budget of course. As bees are limited to one sting per bee, the wasps and hornets don't have such limitations. Honestly, using bees is like trying to rob a bank with a crossbow. It's not a good idea. Speaking of wasps, and you really prefer American, the classic paper wasps and yellow jackets can be controlled relatively well with a good and healthy queen. For small town banks, you have many choices. But if you're looking for something more robust, intimidating, the Japanese hornet, Suzumebachi will be your best bet. Its great size, aggressiveness and ferocity will attract and lure gunfire, as any person with a gun will immediately be tempted to shoot it. They also say freak your tube, which will leave you basically free reign throughout the bank. Make sure to lather wasp essence on yourself so you don't get stung yourself. And they will hover near you and land on you and love you like a dog. Recently in China, there has been a new discovery on or even bigger, badder Godzilla hornet, but regretfully I haven't had the pleasure of working with them. Once the wasps and or hornets are released, you will have a small window of time to rob the bank. Good luck, friend. You simply don't open the reception chamber. Most have a window so you can see a capsule in the pneumatic tube system. If somehow bees got inside of the pneumatic tube system without being in a capsule, it's likely they would get crushed by the pneumatic system. Normally a capsule is sent flying at 25 feet per second. Just on the pressure of air alone, 18 mph wind. On the Beaufort wind scale, this is moderate to fresh breeze. Totally fine in terms of air, but bees can handle up to 20 mph of activity. That means they will cling to something like walls. Which means if a capsule is sent and the bees don't move from the tube wall, they will be crushed. Guts everywhere. It would allow me shout, not the bees. I'd expect the robber would be so thoroughly amused by the Nicolas Cage reference that he would shake my hand, have a good laugh and hand himself into the police. You know, everyone is assuming that the release of the bees was in conjunction with a robbery, but just as I have read it, there's no words about robbing the bank. We are strictly releasing these for enjoyment. That makes it better. It's not like you have to worry about robbing the bank. Bees isn't the worst thing you could get in a tube. I worked at a branch where a lady, pissed off we couldn't cash a check for her, drove off with the tube and came back 30 minutes later and sent it back. She crap in the tube. Needless to say, someone put on gloves and threw it out. Which is what we would have done with a tube full of bees probably. Okay, first of all I want to know how someone got bees into the tube in the first place. I feel like this question raises many other questions. You go ahead of time and steal the carriage thingy. Put some honey in there and wait for bees. Easy peasy. Or you could say easy beasy. How'd he get a queen in there? During a bee swarm, most of the swarm stays in a tight ball around the queen to protect her, but a few scouts fly out searching for their new home. I suspect the pheromone his dad used attracted the scouts. The scouts will then go back to the swarm and communicate with the rest of the swarm of the sweet place they found. Then the whole swarm goes to check it out and move in. Queen included. The queen usually swarms along with the rest of the hive. I bet you could just send a whole small hive through the tube. The only problem is transporting the hive to the bank. I guess you could give them the smoke before you take them to the bank, calm them down for the ride. Sure, you'll probably catch a few stings on the way to the bank. But that'll be peanuts against the wrath the tellers will face. Put the bee queen into the tube or something, I don't know. I mean, it's great and all that you're curious, but while you're sitting there pondering how this happened, I'm trying to remove bees from under Dave's eyelids. Go ahead and enjoy your last few moments contemplating how somebody compromised your precious tube system. I'm using you as a human bee shield and getting the hell out of there. You know you can just buy bees, right? Fleet Farm will sell you 10,000 of them, plus a queen, for like $80. They'll also sell you all the beekeeping equipment too. So you start the hive, open it up, and brush a bunch of workers off the frame and into a container. Stick that into a cooler with a little ice. You wanna daze them, not kill them. Then when you get to the bank, you get the pneumatic cylinder, empty the container of dazed bees into it, and wait for them to wake up. Then just return the cylinder. We had a kid in our tech class in high school who brought a jar of bees to school. I guess there was a small hive in a construction site at his house, and he managed to trap a few that way. His plan was to put them into the CD tray of the computer, so that when the next person opened the tray, the bees would come after them. Fortunately for everyone else, he forgot to poke holes in the lid, and the bees all suffocated. First you need trap the bees, wasps, hornets with a trap. From there you put the trap in a freezer and the bees will fall asleep. Once asleep you break the locking mechanism on the container and then fill the container with bees. Tape the container shut and drive to your desired bank. Remove the tape and insert the container into the tube. Once the tube enters the bank, the tube will open freely, allowing the bees to disperse. The ensuing panic and devastation will not soon be forgotten. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like this video, so all your dreams can come true.